Alright, so my other video here. You all know September, October time frame is the probably most, I'm going to say at this point, and maybe even for a little while now, September, October time frame coming to see what really happens with the global financial system is probably on more radars than perhaps the whole 2012 Mayan calendar thing. I think so many people are, even people that don't pay attention to the stuff that I talk about, I'm talking like friends or family or whatever, I'll overhear stuff and they seem to point to this date later on this year, September, October time frame, in different ways, yet similar. Oh, I heard September or something. Interesting. You know, could it be more anticipated than the 2012 thing? I don't know. I'd say if not, it's a second place. Now, all of the stuff that I've talked about, you probably have read, etc. Man, September, October, the IMF speech from Christine Lagarde, movie references left and right to these dates, all kinds of stuff. The fact that Lindsay's pretty much come out and said it now before the end of the year is out, it's going to go down. Well, that's September, October, November, December. I mean, that's the last 4 months of the year. Half of that is the September, October. November, December is the only 2 months left out of 12 months. Well, it's close enough if it happens before the end of the year as far as I'm concerned. But we have the Shemitah cycle thing ending. There's so much. The 4 blood moon things, the final blood moon ends the same time frame. You gotta be kidding me, right? Oh, it's a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. Sorry about your luck. Not happening. Or as my youngest once said to her sister, sorry about your good luck, Emily. No, Ashley, you're using that wrong. You can't say it like that. It's just sorry about your luck. Not sorry about your good luck. So, I'm watching this video the other day from some pastor. It's only 15 minutes long. And he's kind of connecting some dots himself with this same time frame. And talks about mostly CERN, C-E-R-N, the company that made the giant, enormous, multi-miles long underground particle collider, which I'm going to have to throw more John Teeter stuff in your face again in a second. Time traveler guy. Alleged. And he says, he talks about how big it is, talks about where specifically the facility is located and how it relates to ancient Rome and the old goddess of Apollyon, I think was the name. A deity, and this deity is the only one known for destruction and then rebuilding afterwards. Complete and utter destruction and then rebuilding. And he says, what are the chances that this place is built on that exact location in ancient Roman times of another, whatever was there at Roman times, relating to this place is now there by chance. And he says, you look at these companies, corporations, and you may have a statue out front or a symbol or a logo or whatever it is. You want to see what CERN has out front? Here's their nice statue. It's the deity of Apollyon or whatever. I think it's pronounced Apollyon. Oh, it's there. Or was it the, it looked like the, what is the Hindu goddess, with the arms or whatever, the female thing. It was something like, like that looking thing. And he's going, I'm basically trying to say what he said in 15 minutes, and it was packed full of what he was talking about, so forgive me for maybe getting some of the details wrong, but the point is going to be pretty clear. So why would they choose this? And one of their top executives has been on record saying we're going to attempt, I believe it's September 23rd or 25th. I think it's the 25th. Again, an extremely important day we all know about already for multiple reasons, as I just said. They're going to open this thing up ramp it up and try to create, yes, they've been smashing particles, and they've allegedly found what's called what they've termed the God particle, which this guy says that they're basically saying we want to find out about the Big Bang Theory or really see about that. That's why we're smashing these things. We want to find what we're calling the God particle. Well, we already know they've found some interesting new things they've never seen in the testing so far. This is exactly what John Titor said would happen with the Hadron Particle Collider from CERN. He even named them by name before that particle collider was even online and functioning. He says it leads to the development of the technology I'm using to come back to your world line, aka time travel. Ultimately, the machine that I'm using is created by GE with what CERN ultimately finds. And when asked, well, exactly how does it work? He says, you gotta understand, I'm not a physicist or scientist or whatever, but I know how, kind of like how the parts of your car, how it works. You can describe it, well, so can I, but I can't get real, details about it, because I'm not, I don't know to have the information. He says, however, it basically 2 micro singularities, in other words, 2 microscopic black holes are created, spinning in opposite direction, one counterclockwise and one clockwise. That is what he said is the gist of how this ultimately, the main, meat and potatoes of time travel will be understood in the future. You must have that. So here I am listening to this pastor talking, and he's also saying, here's the quote from the such and such executive named so-and-so at CERN. They're going to be, this year, September, I believe, again, I think it's the 25th is their time frame, going to be trying to create a micro singularity, a micro black hole. You have to be kidding me. Must be a pure coincidence. And one of the guys, the same executive, was saying we don't know if interdimensionally things can enter or exit through this. Now, naturally, the pastor is saying, well, that's demonic, and the demons can come through, and bad entities may come through, etc., is what he was saying. But I'm thinking of John Titor. I'm also instantly thinking of, you remember the old movie? I know you do. 3 parts to it, Back to the Future. What an awesome movie, right? One of the greatest movies of all time. You got to put in your collective list of, if no one's ever seen it, you got to watch it. Just a great movie. And in there, he's got his flux capacitor, and he's got to hit 88 miles an hour to get to the past or present, right? You can go backwards or forward in time. And what is the date, ultimately, on that car? And I'm going off memory, but I believe it was October 15th, 2015. So here we have a movie about time travel, which is completely nonsense, right? Made in 1985, and then a couple other ones a few years later, respectively. And we literally, in real life, have CERN trying to, and whether they're successful or not this go round remains to be seen, but they are going to attempt to create a micro singularity, again known as a microscopic black hole, with their technology to see what really happens. To see for the first time what can happen. And you mean to tell me there's a movie about time travel that points to October 15th, 2015, and the date of CERN doing this, which again, according to John Titor, is the key most element of time travel, of creating a micro singularity is critical. You have to, or you don't time travel, period. And their scheduled date, I think, again, is September 25th. 20 days away from the date of a movie that was made in the 80s. The same movie, which shows the spitting image of the all-seeing eye pyramid on the back of your dollar bill very rapidly when that car goes back into the future to go back to 1985 to save Doc from getting shot. And as the camera pans to follow the car, if you pause it, there's a hardware store with 9/11 on there. And I'm talking the all-seeing eye. The spitting image of the one on the back of your dollar with the triangle, the eye and all. But you gotta pause it to see it. And there were numerous other telltale signs of 9/11, the collapsing Twin Towers. It's all in this movie. Just if you quickly want to see what I'm talking about, just type it in. Back to the Future, September 11th, or 9/11, etc. You will find this video. And the guy shows you. And at first I'm like, oh, here we go. I've heard everything about 9/11. Believe me, I don't believe the official story either. But Back to the Future, come on, what is this? Seriously? And something just said, just watch the stupid thing. J-Snap, you're always one to watch anything. Whether you write it off as crap or not, you're at least willing to. I'm telling myself this. Back to the Future. Come on, Marty and Doc. I'm thinking, oh, God. And I'm watching it. And at first I'm, And then, oh, wow. Oh, now that's an interesting living room setup they have here. I didn't notice that in the movie. It didn't make sense to me. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. You actually see the Twin Towers collapsing in front of your face. Oh my God. You would have never thought about that because when that movie came out was so many years in advance of 9/11, you can't possibly make the connection. Just a bottom line, a pretty damn important movie as far as telltale signs go, and the fact that it ties in with this thing with CERN. We have John Titor. That's a ridiculous story of a man who comes back and says, I'm from the future, and here's what's going to be happening in your world. People saying that's not going to happen. Everything's fine here right now. You're out of your control. There's not going to be a civil war in America. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. And each and every day you hear more of these stories about what's happening in our country. Ferguson is back on fire again. Shootout with the cops. I mean, come on. And then you look at some of the stuff he said, right? There's going to be a big problem between ultimately China, Russia, and the United States. It leads to nuclear war, he says. So the video I just did prior to this is China devaluing its currency overnight 2 full percentage points. And you know the party isn't just starting. It's not done. They're going to keep devaluing. They want the competitive edge. And it's going to be a race to the bottom. And what asset's going to become a race to the top? Gold and silver, precious metals. But China, on the other hand, he says, has a unique ability to hit their targets with their nuclear weapons. And more get through than we had hoped for. Which, again, will ruin anybody's day. But to see this little things like this happening in China, a little tit for tat, and this is getting worse, and China retaliates in a sense, not necessarily retaliating, just doing what's right for China, which makes it look like they're retaliating against the West. When in reality, they're doing what we're trying to do. We're trying to do whatever's best for us as a country, and again, the leadership in our country has not got your best interest in mind and mine either, but they're still trying to do what's best for the West, Western powers, which isn't good for anybody, to tell you the truth. So then I hear Titor's comment that says Russia is actually looked at by him, at his time frame, as a good guy to not everybody, not to the American government, but to the American citizens, as when this happens, it literally turns the tide of this supposed civil war to where the people will ultimately win. Because up until that point, the people weren't exactly winning. So he says from his viewpoint, Russia's your ally. Like when he's talking about when you hear weapons that they're creating that are non-lethal turn out to be quite lethal, and when they say they're using this against the enemy in the future, they're talking about you, referring to our own government and forces. So if this is an issue and there's a war going on of some level between the citizens, and the government. And he says by this time, boundaries were clearly defined, he says, basically meaning, and talk about those out in the country, so to speak, and those in the city. And someone asked him, where's a safe place to go? If he could even suggest anything, because he doesn't want to give too many details away, saying that if it's by probability it's supposed to happen, I don't want to interfere with, what's supposed to happen. He said that's a little different than if I saw a bus coming right now and I was about to smash somebody. Yeah, I'd pull them out of the way. But he says just, as far as a safer place to be, I can tell you this. Just look up the voting zip code area or whatever and take note of the most populated ones, or the most where more voters go to vote, is essentially what he was saying. Stay away from those. He says be 3 days walking distance away from the average person, you should be okay. And when asked why 3 days, why would you throw a number out like that? Like, what's behind that? He says because it is determined, again he supposedly knows now, that a starving person is willing to walk up to about 3 days worth in a certain direction or whatever before they stop and say, you know what, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to go somewhere else or whatever, go back to where I was. Interesting answer, nonetheless. And one final thing I'm going to tell you, because some of this stuff could be kind of scary to think about, and I just read too, now Brazil's in deep trouble. Brazil, massive financial trouble all of a sudden. There is not going to be anywhere, generally speaking, you're going to be able to go to in which whatever's coming financially and potentially after that, because again, after they've destroyed the economy to the extent they're going to, they always take you to war. Always. Mandatory. So not only that you're going to have to deal with, you're going to have to deal with war. So is anywhere really going to be safe? Oh, this country never had any... When the whole world's economy faltered, this 1 or 2 or 3 countries just sailed right through it and everything was fine, and I happened to get lucky and move there before this all happened and life is good. You may hear about a story like that. But how many countries are out there in the world, and do you know with absolute certainty which ones those are, if they even exist? Because I don't know that there will be any that exist as far as a safe place where the economy is not affected. The world is an interconnected economical system nowadays. We all rely on each other for one thing or another, one way or the other. And if you haven't figured it out yet, our part of that relationship has pretty much been the debt issuers of the world. We have the most debt, and our dollar has been the world reserve currency. We don't really offer much of anything else to the world, and haven't for a really long time. So we're a bunch of paper pushers ultimately as far as the rest of the world's concerned. So what happens to us when this all goes down? It might hurt pretty significantly. At the same time, normally what should happen is all of a sudden manufacturing starts coming back, and all these other things that we've shipped off over the last 30, 40 years starts coming back. But it doesn't just, you wake up one day or 1 month and say, oh, it's just going to be painful for a month, but all these factories and all these jobs, they're just going to come back that quick. Do you know how long that's going to take to really come back? How long did it take to get rid of? Decades in the making. So is all of a sudden massive job creation just going to stem all of a sudden in a month or 2 or whatever after all this happens? There's no way. And depending on how this all goes, who's to say that that's just going to happen all of a sudden? You know, and I'm going to say something else finally to end this with John Teeter. And he's asking about entertainment and movie stars. Is all that still happening? He's like, very, very, very little. As a matter of fact, most people do their own thing and put it on the internet, and people watch internet like shows and things that people create themselves on the internet. Do you understand that he said this before YouTube was even a thought? Before Google Video, which is no longer in existence, that was going to try to compete with YouTube, and they realized, forget it, let's just buy YouTube. in 2005, 2006 time frame. They didn't even exist. And here we are seeing exactly that thing happening. People creating their own videos, doing their own editing, doing their own thing, their own little shows even. Their own little comedic things, you name it, it's on there. And now we have this new little device. It's about this big, little box that plugs into your television. You can use Wi-Fi, or you can plug it directly in to your router for internet access. And you can now stream any movie pretty much that you can ever think of, including shows that were just recorded an hour ago or two that just came on live TV that you had to pay cable for. Now you can stream it for free. You don't have to DVR stuff. It's on the internet like forever. If you don't want to know what I'm talking about, just look up Android TV. Go to Amazon.com. You can type that, Android TV. And you will see these little devices that come with an application that's basically an Android operating system in this box, similar to your phone, but it's not a phone. And all it does is give you these apps that are for streaming and watching movies. You can watch live UFC fights, you can watch live streaming stuff, you can watch international news channels, you name it. It is unlimited practically. And it only costs the one-time fee of between $60 and $100 depending on which one of these boxes you buy. I can tell you now, it pretty much doesn't matter which one you buy. They all do the same thing. It's kind of like if, oh, I've got a Droid Max and I've got a Droid such and such and I've got the S3. They all are Android. They all can have the same apps installed. It doesn't matter. Bottom line. You can even use the Amazon Fire Stick for $40 with a little bit of computer messing around with, and upload the same software to the Fire Stick and do the same thing. I tested it at a friend's house. But for $60, there's one on Amazon that I just bought recently that already has everything on there, and it's not a Fire Stick, it's its own little box. So I felt like I'm just gonna use that. I don't want to mess with, have to upload and change stuff, and forget that. Just buy the stupid thing and go. So here we have a box that is now in the process of kind of replacing cable television and all the crappy commercials, because when these things are uploaded and you watch those videos or TV shows or series, and believe me, they are all on there and they are all up to date, the latest and greatest. I notice that I never see commercials. They're taking the commercials out and leaving you with just the movie or the series or the show or whatever. It is so fantastic. And as I say this about the commercial thing, my stomach turns just a little bit. Because as you watch this video, you are sure as hell going to see some advertisements. Why? Because I turn them on. Why? Because I get a little piece of that pie when you guys watch those video advertisements on my YouTube videos. And before that was even possible, I was doing videos anyways, and if it wasn't possible, I'd still be doing videos anyways. But you notice I don't need a thing on my channel that says, please donate to JSnip4. Please donate to JSnip4. Please join every video. Please donate. No. You are donating. When these ads go across the screen, thanks. That is a donation, you could say. So I do appreciate that. But it pains me whenever anybody has to sit through these stupid commercials. But at this point in our lives, it is what it is. So I gotta go. Take care.